Hi, good evening and welcome to a Sprue Talk Live. This is only the second Sprue Talk Live we've ever done, so please bear with us with any technical issues. Hopefully you can hear me. If not, well, I'm sure we'll pick up your comments in a minute, but we have been doing some testing already. So today, this evening, I'm joined by Martin Ridge, who is our Airfix Development Manager.
Hello.
Good evening, Martin. And Matt Whiting, Airfix Design Manager.
Hi everyone.
Good evening, Matt. So they've kindly agreed to join me this evening and to speak to you and answer any of your questions. I say any, obviously don't ask us what's coming out next year because we won't be able to tell you. But keep firing your questions in on the various social media platforms, particularly the YouTube chat box, and we'll try and get through as many as possible. We've changed the format this live slightly, so we've got about 15 minutes of us three answering any questions that have already come in pre-going live, and Brooke, our community manager, is sat behind one of the cameras right now, beavering away and gathering up more of your questions. So after our initial 15 minutes, we're then going to be joined by 4 YouTubers, not at the same time, don't worry, but one after the other. So we're going to have Moz from Moz Models, Jonathan Mock from the Interesting Modelling Company. We'll then be joined by Gary from Gary's Stuff, and then Matt from Model Minutes at 7 o'clock. Each will get 15 minutes, and then once Matt's 15 minutes are over, then we'll have 15 minutes to round up with any questions and bits and pieces that you guys still fire at us, which is great. This doesn't feel live at all, does it? so we could just be literally sat talking to one person when we know Moz is live and Jonathan Mock's live, so at least 2 people, so we know we're talking to 2 people, which is fine. Behind the camera stairs, I've already mentioned Brooke, and we've got our video team sat behind there as well. Give us a wave and a shout, guys. So there's quite a few people in this room. So right, guys, thanks very much. Right, so let's start going through the questions. So we've got the first one here from Sean, Instagram. How many years do you usually get out of a kit?
Lots, actually, is the answer to that, but not all concurrently. So most kits, when they're new, get about 3 years, and maybe 2 or 3 different versions in that 3 years, and then they get rested for a few years and then reintroduced later. So I mean, if you're have been aware of Airfix for a long time, you'll probably realise that kits come and go over the years. Eventually they become vintage classics and have another life even after 20, 30, 40 years. So, yeah.
Of course, we've got the Bond Bug being released this year.
Indeed.
The vintage classic.
Parts. So we've reverse engineered the clear parts, updated them, upgraded them, so that should be coming out later this year.
Yeah. So the reason for mentioning Bomb Bug is the last time that was issued was 1975, first issued in 73, I think. So certainly early 70s. So that kit, to answer that question, 3 years, 4 years of its total life so far, but having the guys have done the work on it, so we can get many more years out of it, I hope. So next question, John there. So have you thought about overproducing the decals for vintage classic kits and selling them separately, either direct or through an outlet, to replace the unusable ones we have in our kits from decades ago? Have we thought about that?
We have thought about that. The problem is really about the small numbers that would be involved and therefore the high cost. So we are really aware that some of you guys have got older kits where the decals wouldn't work anymore if you tried them. It's part of the reason that we do vintage classics at all is to put those kits out again with new decals. Unfortunately, there are so many kits from the past that to be able to do new decal sheets for all of them would be prohibitively expensive. We have a minimum order quantity basically with the manufacturer of the decals, and it's a lot higher than we could ever sell, unfortunately.
If you do contact our spares team though, they can always give you a price for a decal sheet. So if you're honest with them, say you've got a kit from 40 odd years ago and we're just re-releasing it, then I think they charge a nominal fee, but hopefully thousands of you don't now go and flood the spares team for spare decals. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Ooh, cat's out of the bag.
Press the voices up, please.
Voices out. Which mic are we on, guys? Are we on this the big jobbies? So hopefully that's better. But okay, moving on. So Edgar here, question: how do you decide on the decals that will be included in a set? Asking as a volunteer at UAS, and we have a Gannet under restoration. Where's Luke when you need him? And it will be one of the decals it will be one of the decals in the 48 kit. I mean, I've sat here with Luke and answered some of these questions, so go on.
I think there's various different reasons. Some schemes have a good story behind them. You know, the pilot or crew may have won a Victoria Cross or been involved in a famous battle. Sometimes just because we like the look of a scheme, we always try and add a variety of different camouflage schemes, different export schemes, and as you got to in the question, sometimes it's as a thank you to sort of museums and individuals that have helped us out with research. So yeah, lots of different reasons.
Shatters. I'm glad someone else is sat there typing these out and censoring for me. Thank you, Brooke. Are you moving away from 1/72nd scale? No, absolutely not. We are not moving away from 1/72nd scale. However, obviously over the last couple of years, I know there haven't been as many 1/72nd scale kits released. We've had a huge focus on starter sets, as you will all be aware, and there's been a number of 48 scale subjects that we've just wanted to get through the pipe, but largely before any of our competitors do it. So I think that's fair to say, chaps. Yeah.
Yeah, good answer.
Scully scale models. Hey Scully, how do you figure out what parts should be what? And that's all about slicing up and dicing, isn't it?
Yeah, so the way we design kits, we start off by making the outside shape, and then we basically work from the outside in. Most aircraft are fairly conventional, but then we have to take into account how the parts are moulded. Sometimes we might want to separate a detail off into a separate part. Sometimes we'll mould it onto a part. Shapes of parts means that you have to divide parts up so they can be released from a mould. Obviously, you can't have any areas where the mould cuts back in on itself, what's called an undercut, that would lock the part in the mould. And also we might have to account for different versions in the future. So you might have to include different option parts or split parts in two so that we can do different positions or, say, different aerials, different noses, things like that. So the models kind of grow quite organically as we're designing them.
Yeah. Cool, thanks, Matt. Miss Modeler, Airfix went through a period of sterilised box art, which was less combat heavy. Glad to see the combat is back. What led to this change? Well, the change previously was a previous regime, wasn't it? Pre Hornby acquiring the brand. So why that sterilisation happened, couldn't really tell you.
I think it happened because in the early 80s, Airfix was owned by an American toy company, and I think it was them that forced through this sterilisation of box art. Now that we're UK owned again, we just do it the way we like to do it, and at the moment there's nobody telling us we shouldn't.
And a lot of box art is telling a story.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got an aircraft or a military vehicle that was involved in a famous battle, then it's nice to, you know, show that battle as it happened. You know, you can't shy away from things.
Yeah. Peter, Airfix has lived and died from time to time over the decades. What is it about the present Airfix that links it with past incarnations of the company? I think there's been a real resurgence of modelling, hasn't there, over the recent couple of years and pre that. You only have to look at the number of competitors that are out there in the market or choice that the modeller gets. So I think the industry overall has grown and changed. Anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, we're physically linked to our past by our older tooling. So, you know, we're still making some of the same models that were made in the late 1950s and through the 1960s and right up to the present day. And we're also linked by brand imagery. You know, Airfix logo has evolved over the years, but is still very much recognisable with the logos that were used from the sort of late 1960s onwards. So, you know, we are very much still the company that we've always been.
Yeah, well, our vintage classic range is just working really well for bringing that back and connecting it to our past, which is fantastic. Right, it's 6:15. We've got loads more questions there, so we will come back to them. Don't worry, and please do keep on firing your questions at us. We're now going to move over to Moz, wherever Moz is in the world. By magic, the team behind the cameras here will bring him in. So, when you're ready, guys.
We'll be back in 1 sec.
Yeah. Are you live, guys? Yeah, here he is. So it works. You are live. You are live, Moz. So family friendly. You know, nothing but.
Definitely family friendly.
No. Well, thank you very much, Moz, for joining us. And for those that have never heard of Moz or witnessed his goings on YouTube, please go and find his YouTube channel, Moz Models. Or what is it called, Moz?
It's Moz 651 on models.
There you are. So there's a plug. Fire away, Moz. You've only got 15 minutes.
15 minutes of questions.
Yeah.
Wow. Can I just say it's a privilege being on here. Thank you very much for inviting me. I asked some of my subscribers if they had any questions, and obviously there was a lot of questions coming back on why don't you release this, why don't you release that. But just as an observation, I don't hear other people asking other companies to release this and release that. It just seems to be an Airfix thing. Do you kind of agree with that?
That's because they know we'll do a brilliant job.
Hey, yeah.
I do think there's always we always feel the criticism, don't we? Because we live and breathe our brands and our products, and it's always quite hard to take. But equally, I do think there's a lot more criticism that comes over to the Airfix brand, not because we necessarily get anything wrong more than anyone else, but because people love our brand and they feel so connected to it, so they feel compelled to critique, I'm going to say. But so maybe that's something to do with it as well.
Well, that's part of my view of Airfix, is that you did lose a lot of scale modelers back in the day. And when I hear people diss Airfix, I say, I challenge you, build me a kit from the last 5 to 10 years, and it's different. It's different. There's a lot more involved. I understand people have been bitten, but when I talk about Airfix winning, that's what I'm on about. That I think that the models now are right up there, and I think people don't realise the difference.
Cool.
So,
Thanks, Moz.
You know. Yeah, that's it. What is different to Airfix of 2010 to Airfix in 2020? What is your focus of Airfix now? So what was the focus back in the day?
Well, we're the same.
We got older. That's quite a tricky story. I mean, obviously in 2010, we were only a couple of years into the Hornby Era. We were trying really hard to create a modern range of products. We were way behind everybody else at that point. We were still finding our way in terms of CAD design for plastic model kits. We were still finding our way in terms of what does the marketplace want, both in terms of the quality of the model and the level of detail and the subject matter. Over the last 13 years, we've learnt an awful lot about all of those things, and I think that's reflected in the quality of the product that we're putting into the marketplace now, both in terms of the quality of the design and execution and the sophistication of the moulds and the surface detail. It's been a long, hard, but really enjoyable ride for the people involved in product development.
And you're being rewarded by that.
Absolutely,
you can
yeah.
see the quality of the models.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm being told to bring my laptop closer to me. That's what you're miming at me, Nath, isn't it? He's a terrible mime.
Forward.
Just so we can hear you a bit better, I think. But cool. Keep going, Moz.
Another question. I know you're not going to talk about releases, but the one bug for me was the release of the year. We all thought it had disappeared, that it was lost. So are there other tooling that is lost? And particularly the motorbikes, the Audi Arrow, BSA C15, BMW R69 and the Honda CB450. Are they disappeared or are they just on a shelf in India?
They are still existing as far as I know. Okay, so the reason I'm saying it in that way is because notionally we have a list of existing tooling that is still around, but when you go looking for it, it doesn't always turn up.
Okay, is is it the Townsend Ferry, the Enterprise one's actually missing, isn't it? That's
It is,
one
yeah.
tickle.
Yeah, and some of the 32nd scale cars are no longer around. We can't find those, so there are some.
So the bomb bug was originally lost then, and you found it.
I think probably the mould for the clear parts has been lost for a long, long time, which is why it's never been out again.
Okay. That answers that question. And another question was, which I was quite interested in asking you, how long from deciding a kit to tooling to actual release? And just ignore the fact that they don't come to the dock when they say they do. But what's the average in their length?
If everything worked like it should, yeah.
Very much depends on the kit and the subject matter. A small starter set, you could be looking at a year to 18 months, or a big 24 scale super kit, you may have 500-600 parts to design and a lot more research goes into it, so it could be up to 2 years. So it very much depends on the subject matter.
So the guys were already designing product for 24, for releasing 2024. So I have to be really careful what I say, but that certainly doesn't give anything away. But so they will be in theory released early 2024. So, but then of course, as you highlighted, there are other factors at play. So, yeah.
Any other kits planned for the UK manufacturer?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment is all I can really say there, to be honest, and that's me being honest. So we've certainly not had any discussions internally about additional kits for the UK. But the Spitfire they're still pumping Spitfires out. So
yeah, I gather so. Yeah,
yep.
I chatted to him the other day. He said he's going for it full whack.
Yeah,
so
that hasn't slowed down.
The reason I asked that was that one of the questions is the plastic different upon all the kits? Do you actually decide what plastic for each kit, or is it just a standard plastic that India produce? And in England they have a different plastic.
Oh, hang on 2 seconds. So just our IT systems just sent a message saying that all the computers are going to be logged off in a minute. So that would be great. Well, should we let the cat out of the bag with our plastic then? Because we've never really officially said anything, have we?
No, so we are
Is
in
this an
the...
exclusive?
Well, not really. We are in the process of changing the material that is used in India, because obviously we've faced some criticism about the plastic being soft. Not everybody hated the softer plastic, but the majority of people certainly did. So starting with the Buccaneer last year, we moved to a harder plastic. We changed the colour at the same time so that it was obvious it was different. And that new plastic is gradually going into everything that comes out of India.
Wow.
So over time, you'll see that change with everything. The plastic that was used for UK production of the 124th Spitfire is also harder, but it's not exactly the same material that is used in India. It's not exactly.
That's why the question was raised.
Yeah.
Yeah, they spoke that the plastic was different for the Spitfire.
Yeah.
But the plastic is the same in the UK that it was last time we was making stuff in the UK.
Yes.
So there was a huge difference,
Yeah.
or a noticeable difference between UK and India production. That gap has certainly been reduced, which is great. So.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, that's it. That was one of the big ones, was the plastic. I did notice it. Obviously, I don't find it a problem, the soft plastic, but there are people who do genuinely think it is a little bit too soft. But I'm just glad it's a development, I guess.
Yeah, it's just part of that ongoing process of trying to make a better product that we're pursuing all of the time, you know.
Can I suggest a product change in your starter set? The glue.
Yeah.
Give us a needle, please, please.
We'll certainly look at it, Moz. I know you're a fan of that type of precision poly, so
It's good.
yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's just easy to work with. It really is. And other people do it. And I think it's a price point for you, though, isn't it?
The price point of our starter sets and gift sets are certainly one of the first things we consider. Our starter sets start at $11.99, which some can consider pocket money. Some might not, but there is low as we could possibly make them at the moment. So whether that changes in the future, I honestly couldn't say. There's many factors involved there, but it's really important for us that we keep starter sets as low as possible, and quick build as low as possible as well. So, but they're obviously two different types of products. So, but it's not to say that we couldn't add precision poly into some of our larger gift sets, like the Dan Bastazalang and F35 gift set that's coming out in the coming month or two, certainly before May. Fingers crossed. No, it is. So it's not to say that we couldn't include precision poly for that product, but we could also look at the larger dropper bottles of Humbrol acrylic paint in that instead of the small 3 ml stuff. We're not for that product, but just an example of price point. It's something that we could consider. Yep.
Yeah. So I couldn't really know the questions apart from how you getting on with your merch, because I didn't realise that I could get things like this, right? And I went to Bovington Tank Museum, and I was able to pick up this and a metal thing. This stuff isn't on the website.
It was as
Was it?
yeah. So that stuff, which is little lunch boxes, so we know what Moz puts his sandwiches in now. The question is, Moz, what do you have in your sandwiches?
I'm a coronation chicken kind of guy. But there's tuna mayo and also cheese and pickle, but you don't see that these days.
No.
So good old-fashioned cheese and pickle.
So that stuff is available for club members, I think, on our website. If you go into your club members area, and you can find some of it. Most of it's out of stock now, but it's done by a third party, so it's sold in to retailers via third party. The tea and coffee has gone down really well. Excuse the pun. Nah. But yeah, the tea and coffee has actually gone down really well. And you'll be pleased to know We've got new mugs coming in on Friday.
Good, that's good.
Yeah, not that thing that you've got there, because that's unofficial licensed merch. But
Like my t-shirt.
no, put that away as well. Yeah, so we've got new mugs coming in on this Friday, so they'll be available on the site very soon. We've got the pint glass, and then obviously our tea and coffee, which is just behind me actually. But so yeah, it's doing really well. Thanks.
One last question before I go, because I think my 15 minutes is nearly up.
Yep.
Any chance of a bear cat?
Chance of a bear cat. Well,
What's a bear cat?
A cat with no hair.
I think we're just going to keep on teasing and trolling you for a little bit longer, Moz, on that one. So yeah.
But there is one kit that you haven't done.
Never say never, Moz. That's our little yeah. Right, your time is up, Moz. So thank you so much for joining us. As I said, people, if you've never been to Moz's channel before, please go and search for him, find him, and you do regular live videos every week, don't you? So
is that the alarm?
that's your alarm. if I had a red button where it just ejected you out of your seat right now, then that'd be it. So
Yeah, just see me drive off in a bomb bug.
into the sunset. Like off a cliff, like Wilma and Louise. Oh God! Right, Moz, we're gonna have to leave you. So thanks so very much for coming on, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Cheers.
Thanks, Moz.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Yep, and we're live. So welcome, Jonathan Mock, to the Sprue Talk Live. Can you hear us? And all of a sudden he can't hear us. Pleasure. For those that have never seen you before, tell us about your channel.
Oh, it's the Interesting Modelling Company. It's just a kind of weekly or twice weekly middle-aged men having a nervous breakdown on the internet. That's what it comes down to.
So and you'll be live.
We do a news show and we have chats and we do demos and things. So it's just like a modelling magazine show, really.
Yep. Brilliant. And you'll be live this evening after this? No, this is enough.
No, I'm just very pooped at the moment. So.
Yeah. Right, you've got 15 minutes, Jonathan, so fire away.
And your specialist subject is? And your time starts now. Right, got some questions here. One is, what are the criteria for deciding to reissue older kits?
Cool, you've started hard there, Jonathan.
That was the easy one.
Yeah, that was the easy one. So, are you talking about vintage classics particularly?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So, uniqueness is a is a high priority. Having some really good box art to put on it is important, I think, for sales. Has it been out recently is another important criteria. So, you know, if we talk about Bond Bug again, it's unique. It hasn't been out for a very long time. Is there a little bit of chatter about it? Yes. Perfect. And, you know, they probably don't come much better than that, actually. So, yeah.
Well, Beach Buggy.
Yeah, Beach Buggy, yeah. And there are some others that, you know, will come in the future. So, yeah, those are the sort of three main criteria, really. Uniqueness, good box art, and haven't been around for a long time.
And
And obviously the
price on eBay.
and obviously the condition of the tooling as well.
Yes, yes, although when we choose them, we often don't know that. So occasionally there has to be a bit of backtracking. So, yeah, quite often we sort of think, love to put that out, but when we go investigate the state of the tooling, it's a no-no, unfortunately.
Well, question here, and this gets asked a lot. I know the answer, but I'll let you explain it to people. Space 1999 models, why can't Airfix reissue these kits?
You don't know. They're not our tools, are they?
I don't think we have the tools. I think they were NPC tools, weren't they? And also there'd be licensing issues to go along with that as well. So,
Which we can overcome the licensing issues. The main thing is they were never our tools. We just bought the bags in. So there you are. Angel Intercept is different. That is our tool, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that was a question that I've seen in one of our sheets that we will actually cover off later. But Angel Interceptor is Airfix Hornby tool. But yeah, Space 19 stuff. Does that match up with your knowledge, JM?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously there's the Star Cruiser, which was an Airfix original kit, but I don't think that's really that well known.
No,
I
there
can
is.
tell by the blank looks on your faces.
You're right, Jonathan. It doesn't mean a thing to me.
I do know. Was it a Jerry Anderson spin-off or
It
something
was.
like that? Yeah, I do know what you mean. Yeah, bit
It was
niche.
kind of like a multi-role spaceship that was tied into a comic book story they were doing in Lookin at the time. But yeah, you've got the tooling, but who remembers Star Cruiser? So, and obviously there are other kits that were done like Fireball XL5 and Stingray, but the tooling for those has just disappeared off the face of the earth now.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. But anyway, ditto, the railway kit.
Railway.
Railway.
Yeah.
Rail.
So
Know what a railway is.
Trains.
most of the
Locomotives.
I think, as far as I know, most of the railway tools, they weren't Airfix originals. I think they were ex-Rosebud Kitmaster. A lot of them went to Dapol, who still issue quite a few of them. They've refurbed them and still put them out. So, yeah.
Fine. I just want people to hear that from the horse's mouth.
We certainly don't have the tools, do we?
No.
So I think if we had the tools, you would have seen something over the last however many 16 years or so that the brand has been owned by Hornby. So yeah, we don't have them.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Is 176 defunct as an armour scale in favour of 172nd?
Probably. So it's dangerous to say you'd never do something in the future because circumstances change. But, I mean, people will have noticed that the most recent small armour kits have been 72nd scale. So I think it's unlikely that we would do 76th again.
Yeah.
But I certainly wouldn't say we will never do 76th again.
Obviously, you'll reissue 76 scale kits,
Yeah,
but not originate any new tool stuff in 76 scale,
No.
or
not our
never say
intention
never.
to. Yeah, but I would never say never.
Never say never.
Because one day there'll be a different development manager to me, and he might think about the world differently to the way I do.
No, that's not going to happen. What tooling has proven to be difficult to locate?
Bombard clear.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't give anything away.
Crikey. Yeah, that is hard to answer without giving anything away. So I'm not going to.
There's certainly that clearly tells you that there's certainly tools out there that we've wanted to reintroduce, vintage classic and Hornby era, that we're perhaps struggling to at the moment. So, yeah.
Well, I'd say limit your answers to vintage classic then, so as not to get into too much deep water.
Still couldn't tell you without giving anything away.
Fair enough, that's fine.
Well, we have just said that was it the Free Enterprise, the Herald,
Yeah.
that doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist.
So, that's been searched for, and there's tools that have gone missing that we know we've produced plastic from in India. So, was it the Beagle Bassett clear parts that Matt had to re-engineer? It was you that re-engineered those. So even stuff that lives in India for us, that's been produced in India for us, has gone missing. But so yeah, it's not just a case of brand ownership.
No, and are there are obviously kits that will never come back in certain forms. Which ones would they be? Let's put it that way. I'm thinking of things like the C-130 Hercules. It's never going to come back to an RAF version because it was modded into a C-130. So are there other tools in the range that either you can't bring back or they've just gone completely?
There was a series.
Or is that commercially sensitive information?
There was a series of cars that were modified into sort of hot rod versions, which is a shame. What else was there? There's some that are famously lost. Is it the SAM-2 missile launcher?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the original Dakota tooling or C-47 tooling was one way modified, wasn't it, to make a gunship?
Yeah.
But that tooling has been superseded anyway with a more modern kit.
And you could same with the Wellington and the B-17
Yes.
were replaced because the Wellington had been scrapped and the B-17 was.
Chap at Telford always tells us just to cut a tool in half and add an extra bit to create another version. But of course, if you do that, which was the way that things were done a few years ago, then of course you lose that original form, as you well know, Jonathan. So we tend not to do that, do we, anymore? So
Try hard not to. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, one last final question then. Airfix tea, Airfix coffee.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
Any plans for Airfix hot chocolate?
Oh, there's some very happy faces behind the camera. I would quite like Airfix hot chocolate. I think it'd save me a fortune down in our cafe. No, I haven't given it any thought. Hands up for Airfix hot chocolate. I guess is it? Yeah,
it's
quite a few
best new product suggestion of the night, I think.
so far. Airfix hot chocolate. I'll have to have a word. Thank you very much, JM. Oh, we will certainly inquire. I know that the Warbird, I don't believe Warbird Coffee, who we've obviously partnered with to do these products, currently do hot chocolate, but that might be something on their on the agenda.
I know a good company that does hot chocolate.
Fair enough. It's the
And
same.
I'll be very brief. Are there any plans to branch out into other consumables, Airfix biscuits, for example?
No, it's going to sound terrible. It wasn't really planned that we would do Airfix tea and coffee. I would like to expand our consumables a little bit, just to they're fun little things to have. Modelers enjoy a cup of tea or coffee, or everyone drinks something out of a pint glass or a mug or something, and hence the reason why we've gone down that route there. There's certainly a few other things to do. The tea and coffee literally came about. Brooke and I were given some freebies at RIAT last year, and we pretty much live on coffee. And I just one day thought, well, I just need to email Warbird and see if they'd be interested in doing a sort of collab, really. And I sent a photo of it on my desk and sent it to John, and he came back within seconds and said yes, please, and we were able to come to an agreement and pull something together. So Warbird Coffee sell Airfix, the two Airfix products, the tea and the coffee. I think they do several sizes of the coffee as well, not just 250, and they sell that into the retail outlets that they're sort of repping to. So that could be modelling museums or wherever, which is great for us as a brand because there's someone else out there selling product with the Airfix logo on, and we just get to have discounted tea and coffee in the business for the staff to go and buy, and we can send it off to YouTubers to enjoy and just have a bit of fun with it. But
I will say I am an absolute snob when it comes to tea, but that Airfix tea is pretty good stuff.
Thank you very much. And of course, you don't pay VAT on it. So unless the taxman's on watching, and in fact we should be paying VAT on it. In which case, of course, we're paying VAT. We're all above board. Would you like a pack of free tea or coffee?
Well, this is the last in the current series of Sprue Talk.
Right, thank you very much, Jonathan. Thanks for your time. And as I said at the beginning, if you've never watched Jonathan on his channel, go and find the Interesting Modelling Company YouTube channel or Facebook page, and go and enjoy his content. So thanks very much, Jonathan, and we'll speak to you again soon. Thanks a lot.
I'm
Cheers.
going back to work now, so see you later.
Good.
Cheers.
Bye.
Good night.
Hi, welcome Gary to the Sprue Talk Live. Can't get my words out, this is terrible. Thanks for joining us, Gary.
My pleasure.
Tell the viewers who you are, what your channel's called.
It's called Gap. Quite simple. I just models. That's all I do. I just do it because I'm really modelling. Have been for ages.
Perfect.
I just try and build the stuff. If I like it, if there's something that's a bit tricky, I have to figure out how to work it. So just so I find it really.
Have a bit of fun. Yeah. We've got a slight issue with audio. We can just make it out, but so we'll carry on. But I'm sure the guys are trying to improve it as well. So brilliant. Right. So you've got 15 minutes to answer any of your questions. Well, for us to answer any of your questions.
I did ask my lovely viewers, as usual, what they would like to know. There were two major themes that kept coming back every time. One of them was figures. So pilot figures. Is there any kind of policy when you're deciding these
on whether you've got include crew figures, how many you include, because it doesn't seem to be a logical, consistent approach at the moment. Like Schizo, you've got one crew figure, the box arc's really close to 2 crew in the front end. It would be easy to have a second crew figure to put in. Beaufort's got 1. HE 111's got 3. In 148, the Anston, otherwise, of the year last year, by the way, I'm looking at it is brilliant, but there's no for it. The Blenheim's got the shit ones. So, is there a policy on who can do this? And if there isn't, well, would you consider doing them for separate boxing to the stands?
Tricky one, this. So,
Of course it is, that's what
so is there a policy? At 72nd scale, I would say, yes, we probably do have a policy, because if we think that something is likely to go in a gift set or a dogfight double, then yes, we would try really hard to get a pilot into it. One of the difficulties now with pilots is that as the cockpit detail becomes greater and greater, fitting a sort of universal pilot into the model isn't easy, because seats are all different, positions of controls are all different, and you get into a situation really where you've got to make bespoke pilots for every model if you're going to put them in, and that is not easy or cheap. And so we are very aware that some people really miss pilots. Not everybody misses the pilot, but a lot of people do.
especially if they've got an aircraft in front.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but it's not easy or simple for us to do, both in terms of design and execution. So there is a tendency for us to leave them out. Sadly, I mean, I would agree that it would be lovely to put bespoke pilots with exactly the right flying kit into every model, and posed to work properly with the controls or holding the gun in the turret, or but it's not an easy thing to achieve, unfortunately.
We would have had to sculpt brand new figures for the Ansem, wouldn't we?
Yeah, a big issue is we've got a set of pilots in our CAD system, which we can adapt. We can scale them up or down. We can adjust them to a point, but they're mainly fighter pilots. So if you want a pilot for a Spitfire or a Mustang, that's fine. If you want a pilot for something like the Anson, where the pilot is in a much more upright pose, a fighter pilot physically won't fit in that sort of cockpit. So there are sort of limitations how far we can sort of adapt the pilots that we've got.
So for the Ansem, we would have had to, as Martin mentioned, we would have had to sculpt new figures for that. We wouldn't have felt that it was right to sort of cut the navigator off at the knees either, because the amount of glass work down the side to try and get something to fit. So, whether that changes in the future, we don't know. It's certainly something that is quite often a topic of discussion in the office. So, we hear you all.
Okay, the second thing that cropped up, like those again, people primarily it's in flight. This lethal in your stands. Now, you get certain stands separately, the others, the transparent ones. You're doing so much more interesting sort of dynamics for dogfight. That will for starters, you've got the lovely stuff, obviously, which isn't a universal thing. Would you consider either reverting to including a general stand in each kit, or redesigning one stand set a bit more dynamic, a bit more in line with what we're going to see at these days?
Would we put stands in kits again? I can't see us just putting, whether it's a new design stand or an old mould stand in every kit that we do again. It would, I'm going to say, unnecessarily increase costs, which would have to be obviously passed down the chain and increase retail price for something that you could say 50% of people won't use, and those that do want to put aircraft on stands can laser cut their own or purchase the clear stands that we already offer, or have another alternative too. So I would hate to increase the cost and therefore retail price point of a product unnecessarily for the majority. It would be nice to redesign some new stands. That has been another subject of discussion in the office. The shadow stands look amazing, but how do you design a range of shadow stands when you don't know what they're going to be used for? We did talk about shadow stand for the Lancaster in the Dan Buster's gift set with the F-35.
I just think more contemporary design.
Yes.
Ones.
It's something that we'll take away from this actually, and have a chat about in the office tomorrow, and go from there really. So yeah, thanks Gary.
When you were talking the start at the beginning of the year and at the range river, you were saying a lot of the not military vehicle, because there's a retail shift towards the civilian uses of things. Will that be reflected in the future in your aircraft model? Because your different aircraft model at the moment is Cockle, your 45-year-old, the Chipmunk, which was a military trainer, and the Skin, which was a military trainer, and the Skin options are military. You have 3 civil aircraft at the moment, only one civil aircraft will get. Some other companies are doing airline buses and things like that, and reasonably well, and new tools. Is this something or that shift towards the civilian is could be in the future as well?
As we've said before, we're very aware of the balance of military versus non-military in our range. What you've mentioned there is our starter sets and our 43rd scale design tools, which Matt, you've done some of those, haven't you?
Yeah.
Is obviously non-military and appeases a select number of what I'm called national retailers that have that current opinion on not wanting to stock too much military. I'm not going to say they won't stock anything, but there are certain subjects that they just don't want to, which it would be horrible for us not to then offer them any product. And of course, we can offer them the 43rd scale cars. We've got 8 of those in the range now. We have 6, won't we? 6. Yeah, the 3 classics, the 3 sort of more modern. Where it goes a lot beyond those 6, not entirely sure at the moment. We feel like we've got a really comfortable starter set range. We're likely to add a few more bits and pieces in the future, but there's 2 different retail customers. You've got your national high street retailers who are a little bit cautious over military subject at the moment, which is understandable. And then you've got the more contemporary model stores who don't necessarily have that same opinion. So therefore our entire range is acceptable to them. So yeah, we're certainly not trying to. I haven't got a percentage in my head of we need to get our range 50-50 non-military military, because I don't think that would certainly be possible unless I just cut the range to 6 military aircraft and 6 of the new cars. So yeah.
Okay, it's pretty good. That brownish grey is actually different. We were thinking that like an air on slightly brownish colour. Kept saying to people, and people kept saying, no, we've always shipped. So it's a good thing that the national range it's quite obvious colour if you look up that there's been HQ, not just the parts that they made in the process. And they do feel really enjoying that.
Sorry, the audio was really bad. Were you just talking about the plastic material and stuff there?
The that's being used now, the colour
Oh, the colour, yeah, and the
it was very much a brownish grey, and you could see it's a fake bit,
okay.
and it doesn't feel like fake bit, and it is much better to use than it is.
Well done, chaps. Yeah.
So the last thing, you listened to me argue about the point. Well, that read the play. I know it was your choice, but the one is right. Well done for that back this year. You'll do the same on the floor. Right next door, put it on the floor.
The audio's got worse actually. So I think you just mentioned. I think you said, "Well done for bringing the Rotodyne back."
Yeah.
What was the?
To you.
Sorry.
Like I told you.
Yeah, like you said. Yep.
Next door to that was an SR the crop.
Oh right, the SRN4. Yeah. Well, you know that tool is sat here, so and we've mentioned on numerous occasions before. You know, if we've got the tooling and you know the vintage range, the ethos behind the way that we manage the vintage classic range is eventually something will be out. We'll be on a sort of a 10-year cycle. So if the tooling exists, then someday, and it's good enough, which is really important, and Martin's mentioned that this evening, and then you know it will be in the range at some point. When, no idea. There's certainly no plans for that product at the moment. That's me speaking very honestly. But we could, at great expense, ship that all the way to India or maybe even the UK just to trial the product, and we could find that it's pitted or whatever and it's not usable. So in which case you'll never see it. Yeah. We've run out of time now, Gary. Yeah, thanks very much. I'm really sorry we've got some audio problems there. What? Halifax.
But thanks for the question, really appreciate it, and thanks for doing it.
Great to have you on, Gary. Thanks again. We'll speak to you soon. Cheers,
Thanks,
Gary.
Gary.
Bye.
Right.
Hi, and welcome back after that short break. Now we're joined by Matt of Model Minutes. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Very quickly, Matt, who are you and where are you from?
So I have the Model Minutes channel, and I am currently not at home, which is why I don't have my camera on. Sadly.
Oh, very mysterious.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's for a good reason that you're not at home, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. So thanks for joining us. We've got 15 minutes to fire any questions you like at us.
Well, I suppose I'm in the most difficult position because I'm last, and you pretty much asked all the questions that I had.
Oh, sorry, Matt.
So have we covered photo etch yet?
No.
Okay, so one of the questions that I get asked is why doesn't Airfix include photo etch in their kits? I know that you did it with a Opheric one, but obviously the rest of the range don't have photo etch, so I'm sure people will be eager to know why or why not.
It's not quite true actually, because there are photo etch in some of the 35th scale armour products.
Yeah.
But The simplest answer is really to do with health and safety issues. So when we put etch parts in, because they're thin and sharp, it means that we have to recommend the product for 14 years old and upwards rather than 8 and upwards, which we are generally reluctant to do. So that is one of the main reasons. So etch for us is something we talk a lot about, but normally talk about it in terms of accessory packs rather than going into the kit.
Yeah.
Fair. That's a good answer. Thank you. Another question that I was asked recently, let me just find it, is to do with the flying hours. So flying hours have been around for a very long time now. You cut out your coupons, you stick them in your passport, and then you send them to Airfix to get your club kits, or your discounted kits. You get kits for free, effectively.
Yeah.
But with modern times, is there any plans to upgrade that? I know that Hornby Hobbies as a whole have introduced their new hobby rewards point, but what's going to happen with the flying hours?
So, so flying hours is quite rightly mentioned, has been going on for many moons. I would like to change the way that the payment is processed for that. We've already stopped issuing membership numbers because the club essentially is a digital club that you get a free pack with at the very beginning, but otherwise it's all digital, and you get your quarterly magazines. So it'd be great to make flying hours digital, or certainly the payment. So we send, perhaps there's a form on our website where you fill it in, you pay for the postage, whatever it says on the back of the passport. We receive your passport, and we can marry that up to a payment made by yourself, and then we just process the flying hours redemption. So that's one thing that we've discussed internally. Haven't got there yet, and in between that discussion happening, the business overall has introduced Hobby Rewards loyalty scheme. So what that is, for those that don't know, is every time you, when you buy something from any of our brand websites here at Hornby, you collect points, loyalty points, a bit like the Tesco Club card. I think it's a point per pound. I'm looking at some people behind the. I think it's a point per. Is it? No. Ish. Thereabouts.
20%, 10%.
Yeah. And then you can then essentially use those points as money off at a later purchase. There might be a way of changing flying hours for club members, so we increase points for club members, and there's a way of redeeming it that way, and then we remove flying hours. But we know that a lot of people love flying hours, so that's certainly not something that we're planning on doing now, but it's something that we've thought about. Does that answer your question, Matt?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you. Have we spoken about STL files yet?
No.
Brilliant. Okay. So 3D printing is taking off, and there are a lot of people out there who want to print accessories for their model kits. Like extra figures, ground handling equipment for their aircraft, even little diorama bases. What's the likelihood of Airfix being able to produce some complementary STL files for those people who do 3D printing?
Talk about what we've spoken about. Yeah.
It's definitely something that we've considered and would very much like to offer in the future. We've had some chats about it. We've got some good ideas of sort of different packs of parts that would be downloadable that complement existing kits really nicely. So watch this space.
Cool. I look forward to it. So on my Discord server, I've had a lot of people asking the same question, which is kind of along the lines of, which was the most difficult kit ever for Airfix to get into production or get licenses or generally, get out there? And there was a slight addition to that question, which was, which one was also the sort of worst return on your investment?
It's funny enough, I can name those quicker than. Do you what's been the most difficult thing? Licenses tend to be okay, but we have to. Licensing is a whole new world. Another subject for another evening, most surely. But you have a royalty payment percentage usually, and then you have a minimum guarantee. And if that minimum guarantee is quite high, then we have to try and add multiple products to achieve that. In addition to that percentage, and when that's the case, we leverage the power of the other brands. So for McLaren, for example, it's a Hornby Hobbies contract. We've got McLarens in our range, in our quick build range, for example, and Scale Electric have McLarens in there. So we pool all the monies that we collect for that, which is helpful. There are others that we could just never get, but we keep trying.
So, some are really difficult because there's lots of variants of the real thing, especially if they were in service for a long time and got modified through their service lives. So the research part of that becomes difficult and complicated, and trying to work out which bits we need to model to do the variants that we want to do can get really complicated, and that bit of it all happens before we even start design. So some subjects are tricky from that point of view.
You must have an example of that.
I think the one that springs to mind for me is the big 1 to 24th mosquito. It was done, must have been about 13, 14 years ago now, so it was being worked on when I first joined Airfix. I think it was worked on by 2 different designers.
Yeah.
It was very much pushing the limit of what the CAD system could do at the time, to the point where it had to be worked on in sections because the whole model was used too much memory to be opened at once. And I think it was very much a sort of baptism of fire. No one in the Hornby era of Airfix had worked on anything that big and complex before, so it was a real big learning curve.
So Luke has talked about the Gannet that we've announced. Do you know, whenever I name something, after I named it, my heart sinks and I've just let something out of the bag. But no, the Gannet, he reckons he scanned most Gannets in the UK, and he went and scanned an AEW. That's not the one we're doing, is it? We're doing the AES or AS. But he went and scanned an AEW Gannet just to see how different it is to the one that we are doing, and there's so much that's different. But you could start that project thinking that we could get 2 variants out of it, and without 3D scanning or taking the time to go and do all that research, you could get quite a long way before you realise that they're 2 completely different aircraft. There's only one cockpit, isn't there, for the AEW version?
Whole aircraft is different.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Nothing of it is the same.
No, even the wing geometry is completely different. So, and when we announced that the other month, the amount of people saying, it wouldn't have taken much more to add the AEW parts to get another variant out of it, but it's not possible. So a lot of that can really, really complicate projects. And the research books quite often are wrong. So, yeah.
So, off of something you just said there, a question popped into my head. Have you ever accidentally let slip something that is coming in the future? or is it like a 100% success rate at the moment?
I think that occasionally we have given clues actually by accident that actually haven't been picked up on. Yeah. So we've kind of kicked ourselves saying, oh, did I really say that? But actually the world out there hasn't realised that we've almost given it away or given a clue that we kind of expect you guys to pick up on, but it hasn't happened.
I think this was a few years ago now, but the most memorable one for me, not that I was involved in this, was when the 1 to 24 scale Hawker Typhoon was being designed. A couple of the guys went up to Duxford, and upstairs in the big hangar, they've got, at the time they had a cockpit section from a Typhoon. The researcher at the time had it all opened up so they could take photos. when they got back to the office, they realised that they'd left a tape measure at Duxford. It turns out that they'd left it inside the cockpit of the Typhoon, and it was there for about 3 months before the cabinet was opened up again for all to see.
And it said Airfix on it.
It said Hornby Hobbies on the tape measure, so that made me laugh. But
I wish I'd known that. Would have been an amazing social media photo.
But we did bring that model to market without anybody guessing that we were doing it. So
Well, very fortunate.
yeah, absolutely.
I think on that, how long in advance are you planning your kits? Because obviously people say to me, "Oh, I just want this kit, I just want that one," and why haven't they done it yet? But obviously there's a design process. So from first coming up with the idea of what you want to release until it being released, what sort of lead time is that?
Well, there's probably a list of possible subjects that would last us 10 years. Things we would like to do that there are currently holes in the marketplace for. A lot of those we will go ahead and do. Some others never get to the top of the list because it's really hard to find enough information about them. And one of the issues that we have is that the better and more accurate the models that we achieve, the harder it is to research, and it means that some of the subjects where there's nothing still in existence that you can go and scan or measure or photograph, it becomes really difficult to do those subjects, even though we'd really like to. I won't mention what they are, of course, but it is a, probably 20 years ago you wouldn't have worried too much. You'd have got your pictures and made a model that looked like the subject and therefore was good enough. But for us now, that just isn't the way that we work anymore. So there are some subjects we'd love to do, but there aren't any out there, so it just makes it really difficult. And if you can't get the original manufacturer's drawings either, then you're really quite stuck now to make a model to modern standards. Just to go back to answer that question, we are really starting to research subjects now 18 months, 2 years ahead of actually expecting to start the design. So the research process is quite a lengthy one, but of course we're not researching one thing at a time. So it's always going to take a long time.
Concurrent activity there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've said before, Matt, that Luke travels the country weeks on end just with his 3D scanner, and anything that moves or doesn't move, more like, he will literally, and he gets the opportunity, he will scan it. So I think someone mentioned before that, and we've been very open, that we were offered to scan a whole hangar at Cosford. And part of the deal was that we got all the CAD and free and the scan data, sorry, not CAD, and we gave them all the data, and they're using it with sort of VR technology, or they plan to use it with VR technology, and planning aircraft movements in that hangar. So just because we scanned that whole hangar doesn't mean that any of the subjects in that hangar we have an immediate plan to do, but the opportunity was there to do it. So.
Amazing. I think finally, seeing as everyone else has made a request for a kit, I'd like to see the Hawker Hurricane Mark 2/4 in 1/72 scale brought back, because that was my first ever Airfix kit.
Matt, you're nodding, so you.
Yeah, we had a really successful event recently up at Duxford where we did a bit of a seminar. We had I think it was 7 Hawker Hurricanes in the hangar.
Yeah.
Chatted all day to modellers about hurricanes while surrounded by them, and I've really got a bit of a bug for the Hawk Hurricane at the moment, so I'm with you on that one.
Awesome, I look forward to it.
Have you got any other questions, Matt?
I think that's my time, isn't it?
It is, but you started slightly later, so if you've got one more, then you're more than welcome to fire it in.
The think I'd like to thank you for my coffee and tea that you sent me. Unfortunately, I've not enjoyed the coffee because I'm slightly caffeine intolerant, so the caffeinated version would be fantastic. My wife likes the caffeinated version though.
Oh, good. No, pleasure, Matt. Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening, Matt. And for those that can't see your logo on screen, go and search for Model Minutes on YouTube, and they'll find all your content, won't they, Matt? All your unboxings and bits and pieces. So thanks very.
300 videos.
Thank you. You've got more subscribers than us, most probably. So damn. But thanks very much, Matt, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye. Thanks very much. We are back live after saying our goodbyes to Model Minutes there. So we're back looking at the sheet of questions that you've been firing in pre us going live, and of course during us talking to our fellow YouTubers there. So Buffalo here. So we've got Dear Airfix, underpaid chat employee. Do you reckon that's one of our guys? Dear Airfix, underpaid chat employee. What would you like to ask Airfix yourself?
It's probably someone from Corgi.
Do you reckon that is Scott?
Maybe.
Yeah, I reckon that's Scott. You guys know if that's what would I like to ask Airfix? Why don't you release? That's what I'd like to release. Ask the question. A 2013 plate Vauxhall Astra in grey is what I'd like to see in 43rd scale.
Well, Luke has scanned one.
Luke has scanned one because he owns one himself. So, would you like to ask Airfix anything? No. Right. It's a really difficult question there. Thanks very much, Buffalo.
Sort you out tomorrow.
Yeah. We'll find out who you are. Don't hide behind a YouTube handle. Ian here. Is there going to be a planned big reveal at Telford this year? Don't know. Literally don't know. So it depends where the mood takes us, I think, is the best I can give you right now. It's always difficult because obviously we plan our and announce all of our products every January. So anything that we would then later announce at Telford, we certainly wouldn't release them for another good few months as we go into the next calendar year, because it's not in our calendar. But who knows? You'll have to come and find us at Telford, or subscribe to all our channels and things, and find out. But yeah, a chat to have. Kits and bits. Kits and bits. There's quite a few people that have asked for more merch. T-shirts are a bit of a tricky thing because the sizes and filling the warehouse up full of T-shirts instead of plastic model kits, which is what we all want. But there's certainly some more things that we'd like to bring to the market, not just for our own website, but ideally through some retailers as well. Alistair Jones, can we have canopy masks in the box in the future? That has been a chat discussion, hasn't it? Canopy masks.
It has, yeah.
It will continue to be something that we talk about in the office, I dare say. Or we partner with someone that already does really good canopy masks, and we do something there, some sort of collab. But we do hear you. Ollie 5050, how do big metal blocks go missing? Referring to missing tooling.
Well, some of the things that have gone missing are actually a lot smaller than you'd think. Which is so a lot of the older Airfix, the vintage classics, the clear parts are actually very small, say sort of no bigger than a pack of cards. They're actually an insert that go into a larger block. So we've still got the larger block, there's just the small insert that sort of hides within it. And I think where mould have been moved around in the future, people haven't understood what they're looking at, what they should be looking out for, and things have been sort of misplaced. So, yeah, some of them aren't as big as you think.
If you can misplace a screwdriver or a hammer, then you can easily misplace one of those inserts.
Yeah, and certainly because it's two halves that slot together quite tightly, you can't immediately see what that actually is. So,
but the bigger tools, it could be a case of obviously where the Airfix brand has been owned by a number of parent companies over its life. There's a lot of movement of tools. There has been a lot of movement of tools around the world. UK to France, France back to the UK, UK down to China or India, China to India, or in different locations in those countries. So that, of course, has not always been done by us. And in the mix of other companies owning or going to own the brand. So yeah, we're pretty on it now, though, aren't we? We've shipped the vintage classic tool out to India for this year.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think the other thing that's happened over the years as well is that tools have been lent out for manufacture elsewhere and not necessarily been returned.
Thanks very much for your question. The Dan Cave, has Airfix ever thought about entering 124 automotive world? Lots of subjects from Ford, Land Rover, Aston, etc. Well, when we have our super kit meetings, I'm going to say super kit, not 124 scale particular, but when we have our super kit meetings, they're quite often vehicles mentioned, isn't there?
Very often.
We sit there when we talk about vehicles. We was only having a chat the other evening about vehicles, weren't we? So it is something we're very aware of, and I guess us talking about it internally is a good thing for you guys. But yeah, so far we just haven't felt like it's been the the wind hasn't blown in the right direction for a 124 scale kit just for us just yet.
I think the issue is building a range.
Yeah.
You can't just go into the market with a kit on its own, so it'd be quite difficult to go and launch a whole range of a new scale all at once.
Yeah. Mark Mansell, what about re-releasing the 54th mil figure series from the 70s? Did we do those? That was the multi-pose that we did fairly recently, wasn't it? I don't know where we are with the tooling.
They may come up with vintage classics in the future.
Yeah.
They just haven't sort of come to the top yet.
Yeah. Buffalo again. And this is a different Buffalo. Can you start a program for modelers around the world to send your used plastic sprues to be reused in other kits? This has been something that was spoken to a couple of people externally about, actually. So our plastic can be recycled, can't it?
Yeah, and we have started putting the what they call the resin identifier code is moulded onto the sprue. So if you keep the sprue whole, then it should be able to be identified to be recycled.
Yeah. And of course, during our production process, the guys, be that wherever the production happens, they do recycle a percentage of plastic back through. It can't be 100%, can it? Because it interferes with the makeup of the plastic, but they get away with a certain percentage of recycled plastic. I guess the biggest challenge there is the cost of shipping sprues around the world to be recycled might outweigh the benefit of recycling them. So, but it's certainly something that in today's world we are very conscious of. So maybe one day there will be a suitable program. Darren Cooksley, why did you call it Sprue Talk? Ah, Darren, it's you. I say it every time you do, and we see it every time. But consider changing your name. We're not going to change the name because I've had it cut on a bit of plastic behind us.
Sign.
Yeah, I've got a sign made, and I've got to get some mugs made as well. So that, I'm afraid, Darren, is already on the wall. The word sprue is lazy to go with within the hobby. Plus, sprues don't talk, and your channel covers other subjects other than this S word. We brainstormed the name of this, didn't we, for ages? Ages and ages and ages. And the best thing we could come up with, or the most suitable thing that we could come up with, given that our Sprue Talk is more than just a particular product or subject or whatever, was Sprue Talk. But we are very aware that, of course, modelers never actually see the sprue because it's the long bit that always stays in the tool, isn't it? So, but it is a phrase or term that many modelers, new and old, dare I say it, are very familiar with. So that's why we went. That's why we went with it. I've been asked to give Models for Heroes a little shout. So Models for Heroes, well done for all your efforts and hard work. Next question. Speaking of old kits, I'd love to see a return of some of the old dinosaur models. I know, not a question, but a statement I wanted to make regardless. They were something that Darryl was looking at, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Bless him.
Yeah.
But
And the moulds do exist still.
the moulds do exist.
Yeah.
But they're not sort of. Obviously, there's been a lot of research done since those moulds were made, so they're not necessarily particularly accurate models of dinosaurs, but they're good fun.
They've found more dinosaurs since then,
Yeah.
and what we understand of dinosaurs has changed since. Yeah. Yeah. I guess we need a really good reason to bring them back out, and for someone to partner with that accepts that they are not necessarily quite right to our understanding of dinosaurs now.
The birds would be fun though.
Birds would be good fun. Yep. So thank you very much for your question there. Jeff Holt, have you ever tried to make 72nd scale soldier sets in hard plastic? Asking for a friend. Who wants to paint them? Asking for a friend. You don't have to say you're asking for a friend, John. Have we ever tried to make?
So the answer is we can't make hard plastic soldiers in our existing moulds because the hard material won't come out of the moulds. It needs the soft material to enable the plastic pieces to come out of the mould. You can design and tool 72nd soldier sets to work in hard plastic, but it's a lot harder. And the poses tend to be a little bit compromised in order to ensure that they can come out of the moulds easily. If we were to think that it was the right thing to design new sets of 72nd scale soldiers, we would certainly want to try and make them work in hard plastic.
We could do like 2D ones, couldn't we? 2D. Just flat ones. They would just pop out the mould straight away.
Yeah, I don't think they'd impress anybody.
There you are. Thanks very much for your question there, Jeff, and hopefully your friend finds that useful. Remy, what's everyone's favourite kit of all time? Not necessarily the one that you have designed. Matt?
It doesn't have to be Airfix, does it? Or
well, I mean,
when I saw that question, the kit that has got probably the most memories for me, sort of growing up making kits. One of the very, very first kits I made was the Matchbox Gloucester Meteor. It was a really fun kit. You can make it in about 3 or 4 different versions. It's got different noses. It goes together. It went together really nicely. I remember making it with my dad, and I remember taking it to school for show and tell, and I was really proud of it. So that's my favourite kit.
Martin?
I think my favourite kit is actually from recent times, and it's the 24th scale Hawker Typhoon, because I think it's a lovely subject. It's one of my favourite aeroplanes, I think we did a fantastic job at the time, and it's just a lovely model. And I'm sort of proud to have been involved in its development, really. So, yeah.
For me, it's not been released yet, but obviously we've got test shots of it.
Careful.
Have we got test shots of anything we haven't announced? No, we haven't. 35th Ferret, such a beautiful model. And I know I'm really teasing you guys out there because you've not seen it, but I really like armour. I'm a bit of a lazy modeler, I think, but I'm quite happy to sit there and build something and then just spray it green and weather it really quickly, and that's, I find a lot of enjoyment out of that. And that ferret looks like it is a beautiful model, isn't it? A beautiful kit. So so I'm gonna cheat and say something that hasn't been released yet. Jamie Hago, hey Jamie, good to see you. That is the Jamie Hago. Hi chaps, great to see you all. Can't wait for the Gannet. Any idea when it will be on the shelves? Hashtag Fly Navy. Do you know what? I meant to print off a list of dates. Can you remember when we was only talking about it yesterday?
We think August, September-ish.
That was it. Yeah. There you are, Jamie. August, September. So hopefully that ties in with a UK trip. A trip back to the UK with you, and if it does, then let us know, and you're always welcome down here, of course. Just moving on, Paul here from Facebook. How about a modern day ambulance? Would this be complicated? Wouldn't be complicated. As the non-designer, it wouldn't be complicated, would it?
Well, I suppose it depends what scale you did it in and how much in detail on the inside you wanted to put in. Really.
We've got a license with Mercedes and through Scalectric, of course.
Yeah.
So so licensing wouldn't be a problem, but
I think the complication would be what ambulance service you'd represent. Someone from the north of England isn't going to want to build a south of England ambulance. So yeah, I think that would be the complication.
Yeah. Aftermarket decals can go wild then, can't they? So yes. Thanks for your question there, Paul. Eden. Why no love for contemporary spacecraft? One small step for man is literally the only Airfix model with a spacecraft. There certainly is love for contemporary spacecraft. That is an area where licensing is a slight issue, actually. Without naming people, but it's certainly something that we are closely monitoring, and something that we'd like to do in the future. Chris Bruce Hay, excuse me. How about a newly tooled 1/72 scale Westland Whirlwind, the fighter, not the helicopter?
Good subject.
How about it?
And I think we will eventually get around to it. Not necessarily at 72nd scale, but at one scale or another.
You've let something slip. Oh my God! They're doing it. It
does fall into that category of really hard ones to do because there isn't a real one out there. But yes, lovely subject. Love to do it.
Yeah. We've just got you guys okay to do a couple more minutes?
Yeah.
Just to blast through some of these. Atkins. It's been more than a few years since the 144 scale hovercraft kit has been issued. That must be the SRN 70. What's that?
SRN 4.
SRN 1 4. The SRN 1 is 72nd scale, isn't it? I seem to remember that's that really old one. That's. Do you have any plans to reintroduce the kit, as I'm anxious to get my hands on one? Well, if you were listening earlier, that was something that Moz mentioned when Gary, one of them, someone mentioned earlier. So the tools for that are here, whether they're all here or not, but it's not something that we've really gone through and checked. Which does suggest that we have no plans to release that in the immediate future. But the big tool is certainly here because you can't miss it. It's a very big tool. but it would be nice to re-release that. Lawrence Bassett, has Airfix had a thought about producing 148 scale Lancaster bomber? I reckon it would be a very well built kit if Airfix designed one. Thank you very much. I found it's a missed opportunity for the 80th anniversary of 617 Squadron. We're nodding our heads, yes we have, but sadly someone else has got there before us, haven't they? So yeah, it's one of those questions of how many 148 scale Lancaster bombers do people need, and whilst competition products don't necessarily make us any money, there are things out there that haven't been done that would make us more money. So ultimately, or would sell more kits of. So that's, I think, the way to answer that. It's a real shame that we haven't done one, but it would be a big old kit, wouldn't it?
It would.
And the way that we would treat it would be akin to designing a 24 scale kit, I guess.
And some.
Yeah. So it'd be lovely, but so we have thought about 48 scale bombers. Paul, still haven't received an explanation for why aircraft models are in 1/72 scale but vehicles are HO00 176. You know a bit about that, don't you?
I think it's a historic thing. I think when the original Airfix military vehicle kit was conceived, it was to go hand in hand with the British model railway scale, which is 1/76, or RO gauge, which is 4mm to the foot, I think. But I think at the time no one thought that aircraft models would be displayed alongside them. Since then, I think we've kind of made the transition over to 1/72 for our military vehicles. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
It's annoying, isn't it? It's a legacy
I
thing.
think the question that not a lot of people know, and I certainly don't, is why 1/72 was chosen for aeroplanes. I don't know the answer to that, actually.
Yeah.
Lost in the mists of time.
I think it was because so that you could make a Lancaster and a Spitfire at sensible sizes, essentially.
That were at the same scale.
Yeah.
But we are stuck with obviously a legacy range of 76 scale and 72nd scale, whichever way you look at it. Aircraft or vehicles, subject matter. So we certainly can't just turn one range off just to go down to the 72nd scale route. With our vintage classic range of figures and vehicles, of course, in 76 scale, that's that would be quite a chunk of that range that we have no intention of just turning off overnight or trying to redevelop new tools overnight to 72nd scale. David here. Any possibility of a range of 72nd scale airliners, and could you consider adding optional photo etch to your kits for those who want even finer details? They could either be included or sold separately. Well, we've answered the photo etch question, haven't we? We would have to increase our age on the box to 14 plus, not 8 plus, which is what they are currently. We've done airliners in the past. We can never quite get the volumes out of it, can we? In the same way that we do with the...
No, civilian subjects never sell as well as military ones. And unfortunately, we are a commercial organisation that has to show a profit. So when it comes to return on our investment, civil is harder to justify. We'd love to do it, but haven't done so far.
Yeah, for the same amount of development cost and input.
Yeah.
Versus, when we can get more volume and therefore bring more money in for other subjects. So, not
also,
what you would want to hear, but
the practical side of things, a 72nd scale airliner is a huge model.
Yeah.
We're talking twice the size of a Lancaster model.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Colonel, what painting tips do you have for a newbie or someone like me returning to modelling after a 30+ year break? Matt? Take it easy.
Painting tips.
Keep it simple.
Honestly, keep it simple. Don't if you're watching YouTube channels and you're seeing the guys airbrush and it looks like they do it in their sleep or their eyes closed. They've been doing it for many years, haven't they? So
yeah, I'd say just keep it simple. Make sure you wash the parts in soapy water so that they're nice and clean before you start painting them. Make sure you prime everything, just with a nice smooth plastic primer from a spray can, fairly simple. That gives you a brilliant surface to paint on. And the new Humbrol dropper bottle acrylics brush paint really nicely. So yeah, that's where I would start.
Yeah, take your time. Yeah, don't try and airbrush straight away. Scale modelling, 999. Do you have any plans for more 124 scale kits? Well, that is a question, isn't it? Couldn't say. But ever, well, I'm sure we'll do some more at some point. Mystical Potato. Airfix, how do you decide on what kits you are going to release? Is there planning, brainstorming involved? The short answer is yes. There's a lot of brainstorming involved, isn't there, across the brand team and everyone in the team. And then there's an awful lot of planning before that and certainly after that. So.
And there's an awful lot of market research into what people are asking for, etc., etc.
Yeah. We're not just going for a checklist of what we want to see in the business, although it might influence some things. But it is, as I said, a lot of research that goes into that. Mike Child, how long does it generally take to get a model into the market from point of deciding on the subject? We've said 12 months, 18 months, or 2 years. It really depends on the complexity, the size of the kit, what it actually is, how many of how much research materials out there, whether we can scan one. There's loads of things involved. I mentioned earlier that we are already designing products that you won't see until 2024. And we've got on some spreadsheets products that won't be available until 2025 and beyond. So we are a good couple of years ahead, but various different stages of the process. Alt 92. Judging from the questions, would you consider doing 30 seconds at all for aircraft?
We have considered it. We haven't actually done it yet. We may in the future. Really, this surrounds the bigger jets that we think are too large for 1/24th scale. So, that's where we would consider using 1/32nd scale for aeroplanes.
Yep.
But having said that, we kind of see 24th scale as our big scale, the scale that we own as a brand, and therefore there is a little bit of reluctance on our part to do 1/32nd scale as well as 1/24th.
It would be a shame to leave it, wouldn't it?
It would. Yeah.
So, Crazy Silver Edits, has Airfix ever considered a re-release and retooling of 1/24 scale BF 109? It would go nicely with the 1/24 Spitfire. I never liked the phrase retooling because in my head that's just using the old design, cutting new metal. Don't really retool. Obviously, it's a brand new research, brand new design. Everything's brand new. You can't really compare. Yes, I mean to have the Mark 9 C in our range and not have a competitor, if you like, is certainly something that we would like to change. And obviously, the obvious thing is to re-release our existing 1/24 scale 109 at some point. But of course, that is showing its age somewhat. Rich, is there consultation with your competitors when considering new kits? There isn't really, is there?
No.
No.
I don't think we're allowed, are we? Because we're a limited company.
Yeah. So no. Obviously, we know some of them. we're on talking terms with them, of course. It's all friendly, but I'm certainly not disclosing what we're doing, and they're not talking to me about what they're doing. So no, there isn't. We've come up to a section which is labelled archive questions. So maybe this is just the last couple of questions. I'm getting some nods there. Sir Slideshow Ken, Twitter, which is just a Twitter handle that we'd have to mention. So welcome, Sir Slideshow. With regards to 3D printing, when/do you believe 3D parts will be offered as part of a standard boxing? I don't know if it ever will be offered as a standard boxing, but Matt, you mentioned earlier whether it's just an addition to, be that maybe some detail or other variant.
Yeah, I mean, obviously our competitors are starting to go to 3D printing rather than as a replacement for sort of resin aftermarket parts. Depends on the volumes, really. At lower volumes, it could be practical, but certainly where we are, I think our kits will always be injection moulded, but we are looking at the possibility of offering some downloadable files to complement our existing kits.
Yep. And then the last question here, so apologies if your question hasn't been read out or answered, but we will plan to do another one of these, and we will get back on the old Sprue Talk horse with a monthly video, so we can answer any questions, not live, but during those. Is the last question here is from Steve. I, as an aircraft modeller, would like to see different options for pilots included in the kit, maybe free. The standard sitting in the cockpit, standing next to the aircraft and climbing into the cockpit for all periods and scales. Have you considered this? Really quickly, we've covered that today. Really, there's a huge amount of development cost that goes into figures that that they may or may not be used, and we don't quite feel comfortable with the balance of that yet, do we? So we quite agree. We would love to see it, wouldn't we? We have no issue with that. But we haven't quite found the balance. Whether you'll ever see free in different poses just thrown into the kit, I'm not entirely sure. But it's certainly something that will continue to be a topic of discussion internally. So, any other comments to that one? No. Cool. Right. That's all of those questions that we've gone through. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. Apologies if we've not got to your question. We'll try. Brooke and I will go through social media, try and answer any questions that we've not been able to read out and go through this evening. Apologies if we don't get to it, just simply a lot of them. Thank you for joining us. If you've not already subscribed to our channel, please do so. Click that subscribe button and thumbs up, as Gary says, in the Imperial thumbs up button. And you can also click to be notified of whenever we release a new video. Thank you, Martin, for joining this evening. Thank you, Matt, for joining. Thank you, team behind the cameras. Give us a wave, give us a whir. Woo! Yeah, thank you very much, guys. And we'll see you again on another Sprue Talk. Thanks very much. See you soon.
Good night.